Because it didn't begin with Doug.
Okay, sure, yeah. But
You want me
Yeah.
Here I come. Oh, here I come. Oh.
Now, she wants to talk about something that I found to be quite interesting. Yeah.
But the point is, some people will feel this family feud is like, hey, you're taking my piece of the pie. So what would you guys say to that?
yeah, and I would say this also.
And please note as well here, even though we are looking at Family Feud, I really took time as well to kind of like break down the power structure in my previous video, looking at Marcus Lamb. Marcus was willing to fire Jonathan if he was not respecting he and the wife, because he categorically said it in the letter, if you had watched my previous video, that this particular ministry or station was started by he and Johnny, and he wouldn't mind as well kicking them out if they don't respect him as quote unquote either the watchman or the voice of God in the ministry. It is not different. What Marcus did while he was alive is not different to what Johnny as well is doing with respect to seeing herself as the voice of God, or would I say the authority in the ministry, and also willing, even though he was even saying in the audio that she doesn't want them to leave, but if they have to leave, what do you expect? And this is something you get to also notice consistently here. Let's listen to him at this point here. Listen attentively, my dear friends, and observe body language. Some of you don't pay attention to these things, but listen.
Because one of my mom, in her statement that she made it out to be that I was unhappy that I was not going to be the future president.
Right.
So I was on a smear campaign. But the truth is, my mother and I had a really good relationship, and she literally told me that I trust you with my life, to the point that when my father passed, she literally added me to every single one of her bank accounts and credit cards. That's how much trust she had in me.
Okay, hold on. I want to respond to that. I need to get some water. Now, indeed, the mother did that as well to show his trust, or her trust for him, because she knows that the only ground that he can actually be the one to run DayStar is when she passes on. And if she's passing on as well, for her to pick him to be signatory to his account, her accounts, and everything that has to do with her finances or money. She even talked about it in that particular audio, saying that he can literally rob him if he wanted to do so. Why? Because he is signatory to everything. Not the person that Suzy gets to actually put into the conversation right now, whom I think is the first girl, the first daughter. You will hear her talk about him here. If the whole tussle was about power or something, the mother could have picked her instead of Jonathan. The question right now is that now that there's a rift and he's been kicked out of the ministry, does he still have signatory to the accounts? Or right now the mother would say, hey, okay, Jonathan is gone, I think I have to make you the next person. Because on this particular conversation, you will see that Rebecca, by the way, as well, Marcus and Johnny have Jonathan, Rachel, and Rebecca. Rebecca and Suzy are in good terms. You get to see her talk about Rebecca right here. So she doesn't really get to talk about Rachel as well here pretty much very well like that, I would say. You hear Johnny as well talk about how the family structure was supposed to be, or what Marcus always wished, that Jonathan runs the ministry with the sisters, not even talking about, like, let's say, whoever becomes their spouse, but more like within the family, them doing it together mainly, okay? But the reason why I have to mention this is that for the mother to use him as that particular signatory or access is because she sees him to be the head, okay? So she would expect him as well to act like his father acted in what you would call, which I'll get to talking about that, cover up, to also maintain status quo for the sake of the ministry. But again, who am I to judge? I have to make sure I follow this chronologically. So let's listen, okay? Sorry I got to break in there.
Wow.
So that's the way it was. Not until Doug came into the picture was there a real rift, because we just stood firm on our convictions, and she had the attitude that I heard from God. God told me to marry this man, and therefore, if you don't believe that God told me to marry this man, we can't do ministry together. So
I mean, wonderful. Now, let me now get to the context where Johnny says was the real rift, because according to her, everything was fine until this moment. So let's go on as well here to look at what Johnny had to say.
If you see anything, it's a red flag in June of 2023, right, is when everything started to shift. But what happened that people don't know is that I told Suzy and the kids that when I got married, that I would use Doug to co-host with me. Now, Doug has a seminary degree. He's a licensed psychologist. He's been in ministry for years. And
he's a seasoned television presenter.
Well, and we just had, you know, a little season of the kids hosting with me, but it wasn't Joni and one of the kids. It was always Marcus and Joni. So it was a husband and wife. And of course they would have continued to be a part and host when I wasn't there. And
as
probably,
they do now.
Yeah. So, but when Suzy found out that's when the turn started.
Do you see? Note who she's facing. Hello, is it me you're looking for? Hey, this is not the context of that song. You see where her mind is going to? Suzy. Not even about Jonathan. Suzy. Johnny Lamb understands the personality of Suzy very well. Even Suzy was at a point talking about the fact that they were very close as well. It was as if she was being sized up and all of that. So there was that. Do you know what it means for you to marry a woman's only son? You have to really be in cahoots with her. She has to trust you, like you. I know my son, that kind of thing. I'm just saying, where I come from. Imagine the person that will marry me now. My mother will want to be like, tell me about this boy, because I don't know him anymore. Anyway, that's just by the way, okay? What do you get the point of what I'm saying here? She's now like, Suzy. When she got to find out, you know that point where you have to sleep? I'm just being imaginative right now. Maybe they want to sleep at night, just like that. Hey, honey, so what happened? You know, your mommy said about some things about, what do you think? Don't you think, you know? Remember what I said about the women? That's why she's looking at Suzy here at this point. Let me continue as well to what she says here.
And then she pulled Jonathan into it, and then kind of there were rumblings with all the kids, you know, like, well, maybe mom should slow down, or maybe, you know, and it was just like a 180 from what it had been. And so I just thought, well, Lord, you know, I stayed with the counsel of you guys and of other ministers, seasoned ministers, and I knew that the Lord had brought this man into my life. I knew that I was going to get married in June.
Okay, I'm not going into that because, you know, who am I to question what the Lord has told you? We have been here, those of who have been here with me before. Virtually almost all the pastors you have in Africa, let me say Nigeria, all of them have seen Jesus. But the ones that will see Jesus and say Jesus told them that Apostle Paul was wrong, all of those shenanigans. So for me, what I will not do here is question what you say Jesus has told you or God has told you. No. But I can question what you say God has told you that is against and contrary to what the written word says. If not, the demon has told you that. Do you understand? So I think them right now, if they were okay with the whole relationship up until the point that you hear Johnny herself talk about, then that means there's something really cooking. Because you see, the whole Marcus and Johnny now coming to become Doug and Johnny will now look as if, I don't know if they have changed that, but that has always been the theme, will now look as if, you know, something else is about to happen right here. Or were they expecting that he was going to marry her and just remain on the sidelines while they themselves still become the face of the ministry? Do you understand? So if Johnny herself is interpreting it correctly, looking at Suzy being the one to transform, and then kind of like, because if you look at Jonathan, you know that he's a gentleman. He's quiet, he's a bit, he appears like that. Some of us, we are kwechiri. I get coconut head. I know they hear what. But let's listen to Jonathan here.
It's like a breaking point.
Could we go through the route though? Sure. Because it didn't begin with Doug.
Okay, sure, yeah. But
you want me
Yeah. Yeah. Now, she wants to talk about something that I found to be quite interesting. Yeah. A different route right now. So it's not even about the whole molestation thing. Something else she wants to go for that into. So let's listen.
start?
go ahead, yeah.
Well, I wasn't going to get into this because God is my defender. Mm-hmm. But for anyone who knows the inner circle, I came from a totally different family. In my family, there's no passive aggressive. We say everything and then we get over it. I entered this family. Everything's okay, but there's a lot of, it's hard for me because I'm more vocal. Mm-hmm. And for years, and God knows all of this. I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus, but God knows there was a lot of frustration because of the competition of Jonathan being a threat because he's going to be the heir.
Jonathan being a threat to who? You see, this now becomes where people try to make a connection with what happened or what happened at TBN with Matt and Cross Jr., with how Cross Jr. knowing about a couple of secrets. You guys know the story. I don't have to tell that to you, okay? Knowing about, the father's alcoholism as he alleged, knowing about, the mommy's, side piece, of course, in the ministry. Even it was reported, of course, on Fox News as well that, Senior himself was involved in some homosexual whatever. These are news out there. I didn't get to make them up. Facts, go check them out, okay? And the person was paid up. And also looking at even his own daughter as well being raped. I think she was 14 as well by someone who also is in the ministry. Someone 14, someone 35. They were taken to court and millions, I think, money was gotten for that. And, some internal issues that were done and more like cover-ups and all of that. But, Kraus Jr. was looking at it that the brother was eyeing that particular sport as well. And then he tried as well to make sure he was kicked out. That is what I think Suzy might be trying to make a connection right here. Now, listen to how she talks about this person and you will know exactly who she's talking about. It's a different thing entirely. She's taking this to. And here am I also taking it to that direction because we have to see what she sees to be the root cause of an issue. Not even about the S abuse you all are thinking about. So let's listen.
Jonathan and I are almost like childlike. We don't think about these things, don't care. We're raising our little children. But the competition, and I would always get angry, but defend speak for yourself. You don't have to take it. And he would just be quiet and say, God will defend me. Yeah. But then at home, I'd have a very broken husband. And so it was years of like, God, let someone fight for him because the root was not being dealt with. There was not correction from the top saying, hey, this is your brother's position. Stop fighting for it.
Where is this coming from? Suzy, if you're watching this video, where is this coming from? This is your brother's position. Stop fighting for it. I thought the whole issue was that so it is not dog right now being more like a threat, I would say. So she's trying to point us to someone else inside who is Jonathan's sister. Not Rebecca, the other one. That's what she's trying to do right now. Because I want to also state this fact again. Now there is nobody as vice president. If Doug holds any leadership position in DayStar, any, according to what they have said that he signed a prenup and according to what Johnny Lam herself said, and she said, of course, about the audio that all she said was true. If he holds any leadership position in that particular ministry or television station, that means they lied. I'm just saying that for a fact, so you know. So while all of this as well is happening, if someone is going to step into the shoes of that vice president, probably it will have to be Rachel or it's going to be Rebecca. Anyway, Rebecca is according to how Suzy talks about Rebecca is close and friendly with her and they cry together, all of those things. That's what she's trying to allege right now, but let's go on.
And there was constantly the competition of like, I was born the wrong sex. That's why I didn't get, if I was a man, I would get it. And I really, that is Jezebel. And other people saw.
So you see this? Oh, women. You believe that is Jezebel? How yeah? And you people were just praying. Was that the Jezebel you people were praying about?
I just thank you for giving them a boldness, Lord God, to speak out, to face the Goliath, to face that Jezebel spirit, Father. And so we just want the truth to come out. We want you to be glorified. We want people to be touched. We want people to be challenged, convicted, to understand not to put anyone on a pedestal.
Hey, George, anyway, okay, I'll be serious when we talk about it, but I just have to smile, This is a family situation, so I can't even imagine. Let's go on.
Other family members suffered with it, but it was not dealt with. And because of that, there was a lot of tension. It was really hard in our marriage, and I would beg Joni many times. Rebecca and I both begged her at different times. We just want to leave DayStar. We just want to go. Let me go. And she was like, no, God has a plan. You're going to stay. And there was definitely the image of portraying a perfect image of a family to people because it inspires people, sure, but it's also real. So all that to say that these roots have been there a very long time, and Joni knows more than anything else. I don't care how deceived a person may be. She knows when she said those words about Jonathan, that was the farthest thing from the truth. He has never defended himself. Right. She would say it all the time. Jonathan's the one who never asked me for anything. When Marcus died, she told him to take Marcus's office, the president's seat. And he said, no, Mom, I won't take that office until God puts me in that office. This is who he is. And so when she stood there and said that, we couldn't even give a response because it's so far. It's like,
I can discern that about you for sure,
And, it was
So can we say that what if you hadn't watched my previous video of me trying to make that particular connection about what Johnny Lamb herself talked about, Jonathan being disappointed that he was not named president. Either ways, the question is, did Jonathan himself know that Dog had signed a prenup? Probably it was going to look as if Dog was going to take over or something. Anyway, my previous video of course got to address the point if Jonathan actually thought he was supposed to be president, looking at his words from the letter. We did that correlation. So if you hadn't watched the previous video, I don't want to repeat that. The video is already becoming too long. Let's listen forward.
It was clearly laid out by my father that I would be the future president after my mother, after she either passed or retired. And so again, if I just went along with the charade, we put our personal convictions aside and we just welcomed in the new marriage, there would have been no problem as far as...
You would have just waited your time.
Yes, of course.
I would have been in that position at the right time. Well, I mean, to her, whenever she retired or whatnot. But
of course.
it would have happened.
Right.
But the thing is, it only became a problem whenever we said, hey, Mom, we can't
She's
go
trying to manipulate it. And I can tell by
now
your
she's trying
character.
to make it look like I was going to...
You're mad because she
usurp the
took it. Like,
position,
you should have got it right away.
Or I was never supposed to have the position, and I was angry about that.
You feel like, your father, passing kind of like that, that order. God has a hierarchy in the family. So now that he's out of the position, I've seen this, and I'm not a misogynist or nothing like that, but...
Okay, so Marcus goes on to talk about the whole male and female role and all of that. That's not where we want to go to, okay? I know I'm keeping you long already, but I have to make sure I follow this pattern so that when my letters are coming, I know how to deal with them. You will not be there. You understand? That's why I'm making sure I'm following this, to just make sure I'm clearing my mind and conscience on this. Let's go on to talking about the chronology of this child abuse event. So come back. Let's not talk about the Jezebel. Let's come back as well and look at what they say about the child abuse thing, so I can ask you critical questions and now you think. Not what we have looked at, what child abuse itself or sexual molestation or child molestation entails and all of that. Let's come back as well now, okay?
I'm going to be raw.
Yeah.
I hate when the presidency DayStar stuff is mixed with my child.
Yeah.
This is my jewel. This is my heart. I would die for her. And I don't like the two subjects mixed. It's just, it came about, erupted to the world at the same time.
Yeah.
But one thing what God has for you, no one can steal, as long as you obey God. So I don't care to even defend that the plan changed. They can do anything they want. She told me, I convinced Marcus, I'm going to have to protect the family. And I said, okay, because what God has for me, no one can take if I obey God. My child, that is my life. I will have justice from that. And I believe that one of the reasons everything is being toppled over is because God cares about my child's voice. Because as time passes, people might forget when her body went limp when he entered the room, but God doesn't forget.
People might forget when her body went limp when she got into the room, but God would not forget. Remember this, because I'll be asking critical questions with respect to what she just said now. And let me just give you context of when she said this, so it begins to make sense as to what she's saying.
One afternoon to grab something from the cafe. There was something in the green room, and I had my child with me, and I knew she was scared at this point, so we didn't take her there anymore. We had a nanny at home with her. But this one time, I wanted to pick up something really quick. I go in there. It's in the afternoon. I didn't think anyone would be in the green room. And I take her with me, and it was horrible. I go to grab that box of food, and in walks Pete and, his spouse. And my child was so full of terror, her body went completely limp, and she fell under the table hard. I grabbed her little body, I picked her up, and I ran into the car. And I remember telling other family members about it, the ones I trusted. And it was traumatic. I was like, I'm not bringing my child here. We didn't for a while. But these things were happening.
So that was a later time she just went with the daughter to DayStar. At this point, she's saying that the girl is scared of going to DayStar. So DayStar, if you are wise, you will know who the person might be with respect to someone she has antagonized already in this whole conversation. But let's not go there. Because if I want to start going to describing the person and all of that, did I say anything? Because they will say that, George, you are the first to mention who you think the pit is. But if you are wise, you know. But in this particular case, I'm not making any allegation. I'm just making sure I follow along with what she's saying here. So let's go on.
And that's my father. So sorry.
No, it's so I got it lined up. I wanted to talk about that as well. You know, we talked about it earlier. The Bible says God takes it serious. A millstone be tied around your neck, you throw in the sea, then you offend one of these little ones. So all of the stuff that we talked about to the side, man, and I have chills right now, that matters to God. Okay. You know, that matters to God. And if you are a leader to whom much is given, much is required. There's a reason when God told Moses, speak to the rock, and he struck the rock out of emotions, God said, Moses, you're done. And so for them to be in a position of power and influence, you're supposed to be a protector. You know, you're supposed to do this. When you brought it to them and they did this internal investigation, you know, how did you feel about that? You know, I'm glad you guys clarified in the last video. You did originally go to the police. Matter of fact, just run through that story just for people who need clarity.
Run through the story. Let's see.
So
Listen.
November of 2020 when.
So my daughter told me November 2020, and so we went to the police. But she had said it was something that I kind of said, was it at the school? Because I couldn't imagine DayStar, and it's not home. And she kind of went along with it. I've realized from counselors now, this is what kids do. They want to please you with their answers. So
the child said it was at school, according to what she told Johnny, and Johnny was saying. So there was a boy with she and her friend. So it's not like a one-person thing. There was someone and someone else. I don't know if I played the video right here with you guys to see. But if I haven't played the video, I'm going to play it at this point. So there was someone else. Okay, but let's go on. But according to her as well here, you heard what Johnny herself said. I don't know if I played the video, but let me see if I have. Okay.
Like Cindy said, there are those allegations out there from people who really don't know much about what's going on. One of the questions is, when did you hear about the alleged abuse?
My first knowledge of any abuse was in November of 2020. And Suzy called me and said there had been an incident at my granddaughter's preschool. And she told me that.
So Suzy told her emphatically, it's not as if she's not sure, is it school, is it here? She told her this has happened at her preschool. So
something had happened where a little boy touched her and her friend.
So where does it now come into the subject of from a little boy? She's saying a little boy, and Suzy was saying someone taller than her dad. How can you now get to combine these two stories? Let's go on.
And so she called me and asked me, would I go to the school with her? And I said, absolutely. So I went with her to the school. We reported it to the school. And of course, you know, I was there to encourage, and as I would for any child, but especially my granddaughter.
Of course, yes.
And so that was the incident that happened. And yet, you know, what's being written is just taken out of context.
Okay, so I'm not going to that as well. Let's continue listening to Suzy.
I was like, is it a boy? Is it a girl? A boy. And she said taller than daddy. So I was like, oh my gosh.
Okay, so now she says it's a boy. But in the other video, she said it's she said it's a man taller than daddy. Do you understand? A boy or a girl, then she said it was a man. Okay, so now okay, let's go on.
Taller than dad, that's a man.
Yeah.
That's why the school, the police did an investigation on the school, and there was no male employees. So they had to shut down the case, which is okay. That's why the case was called unfounded. And my heart was broken, but I knew that this is real with my child, and God won't let it sit. Time passes. My sister-in-law's telling me things about what she's witnessing.
With Pete.
My sister-in-law is telling me some things that she is witnessing with Pete. Who would be this sister-in-law that is telling her something she's witnessing with Pete? Because this sister-in-law has to be, in my opinion, someone she's close with. And in this particular case, she is talked about how she's close with Rebecca. Would it be Rebecca? Suzy, you have to tell me, please. Before you send me your own letter, you have to tell us if this your close sister-in-law would have to be Rebecca. Because she consoled and cried and everything with you at the beach or something. Let's go on.
At DayStar.
Yeah, there's all sorts of different things. You know, Pete wants them for sleepover, my kids. I'm not allowed to say no.
Pete shows up to her house when we're not home if just the
to play with.
Is there a legal reason why we keep calling him Pete or protecting Pete? Or
Because
you can't, since he hasn't been charged with a crime.
Okay.
Just for legal reasons.
Got it.
The reason he's not charged with a crime is because her memory has faded. When she does remember and has an outcry,
Yeah.
he would be arrested.
When she does remember and has an outcry, so her memory has faded. You know, when it comes to counseling as well, when professionals are doing this thing, it's one thing for you to do exegesis. It's one thing for you to do eisegesis, whereby either you are, okay, just like scriptural terms, you know, interpreting from scripture and then you interpreting into. A professional counselor or someone investigating would not try to be the one to put words into your mouth, but try to also make meaning of the things you are saying. Do you understand? So is a child as well doing having an outcry now? Is the parents are the one crying and trying to seek justice? Just so we stay on the context of this. But there are some things I've told you to note. Just keep that at the back of your mind, because as we go further, I'm going to be asking that question. Let's go on.
She has to have an outcry to name Pete.
Right. Got
Which
it.
is why we took her through counseling to get that. But it started to affect her so badly that the counselor said her health is more important than justice. So we backed off.
Right.
So
She's very young, right, when this is happening.
she was 5. Yeah.
She was 4 when she first told you.
Yeah,
Or just had turned 5.
Just turned 5.
turned 5.
Wow.
So as time passes, you know,
So it probably happened when she was
because
4.
after that vacation, we cut him off from our house. As soon as you start feeling safe, the brain starts to lock it off and put it away. So since we had boundaries, but I will say this, if you look at text messages, pictures, we never made Pete and his wife, this is probably not a good thing on our part, we never made them feel bad, because when Marcus told us he's been cleared and didn't let us talk to the investigators, we didn't make them feel bad. We didn't act like you're untouchables. We showed them the love of Christ. We did everything to do right before God. And, you know, now that's being turned on us like as if, you know, y'all are
I
bad
get that.
parents.
So, you know, I wanted to ask you this just so the people can hear it. I heard you explain it before. As a man, obviously, you know, I heard the story. You say, you know, your wife called you to the room, you went in there, and then his behavior, from what you say, he screams guilty.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sorry. I'm like, you definitely, the way you explained it. So some people are going to say, you know, why you didn't beat Pete up right there on the spot. Is it because family members, so the confusion is hitting? You know what I'm saying? Or I could just, you know, as a Christian, you know, it's a lot of different
For
reasons.
sure. Let me recap.
Pete, even Jonathan doesn't look like someone that is gonna do MMA on someone. Categorically, I would say he doesn't look to me like someone like that. Come on, I could do it, you know. But he's kind of like gentleman, quiet, cool. I'm just saying, like, let's go.
That. So Suzy tells our kids to go and change into their swimsuits.
Just my daughter.
And
Suzy tells our kids, "Oh, just my daughter." It now begins to make sense what you hear, what Johnny was saying, because it was not just Pete that was there. You will hear the video, but the child, Pete, his own child, Suzy and Jonathan's son, before the girl. But you will get that. Let's just listen to their side, then we'll look at what Johnny had to say.
And right when you did that, how did you see Pete's?
So she goes up the stairs.
What did his eyes look like?
So she's like, Mommy, I want to go swimming. I said, okay, go up. Her room is on the 3rd floor. Go up the stairs. Go put on your swimsuit. So she turns up, go up. Pete is in the kitchen. I had told the journalist this part, but we didn't make it public because we want to leave children out of the story.
But you're already talking about your daughter. Hello? Leave children out of the story. But when you made that information incomplete, people are going to drive it to be more like Pete was alone with the girl in the room. And of course, if you read what we had, if you think in the line of what we have defined child abuse or sexual molestation to be, it will mean that something must have been going on there, something sneaky. Because the way they narrated it, of course, in the video you see me showing you right now on your screen, it wasn't like that. So now, of course, you have to do an updated interview to just chip in that information. So had it been Johnny kept quiet and said nothing on her side of the story, would you have come out to make this correction? And everybody are going to be moving sentimentally, of course, on this. My dear friends, this is not the first time I've been talking about trends, or would I say quote and unquote scandals that has to do with church. I have experience in this. That is why I wait and listen. Not because, oh, maybe I hate somebody. I would just be like, oh, something is trending, I start talking about it. No, I wait and see, is there any reactions? Is there any rebuttal? So I can look at them together. Do you understand?
There was another child, you know, he was holding his kid in his arms. I'm not going to get into that, but it's almost like it was a non-factor.
No, it's not a non-factor. It's a real factor. Because that part was not there before. What were the people thinking? I read the comments on your channel. It was something else entirely. This is not about the child right now. We are talking about you. You are the adults that are giving us information. Do you understand? It's a factor, and it changes the whole dynamics of everything. Because everybody watching on social media, those watching right now as well, don't know nothing. They were not there. They just have to move according to sentiments of who I stand with. But I don't care. For sure, I don't care about nothing. I just care about looking at the facts and I move on. I have many other things lined up to talk about. Not even this.
It was just like the eyes turned, like dilated. I don't even know. Something took over. And this man goes, ah, and started following her.
Now you have added another detail. The other part, you say that you just saw him as if your spirit quickened you and then as if something, he's holding his own child and with his own child in his hand, and he went upstairs. The idea would be that your daughter went up first and then he now got to follow. So by when was there another boy in there in the room? How did the other boy, your son, be in the room? Because for Jonathan to start by saying he told the kids to go upstairs, Pete was in the kitchen. So come on, normally as well, when parents are cooking in the kitchen, go to your room when food is ready or something. I'm just giving a picture here. So how did that whole thing happen? Let's please listen, okay?
And I'm telling you, I move, but in that moment, they will not believe you.
So you're in the
Get
kitchen.
Jonathan.
I'm in our room brushing my teeth.
Yeah.
And you feel.
I was just like, Jonathan. I was like, he followed her.
She comes and lets me know, hey, I just saw her follow up our daughter, and I just felt a quickening in my spirit. I was brushing my teeth and I just stopped mid.
So for her to say, oh, Jonathan, he followed her, that means there has been a preconceived idea about his person. Do you understand? A preconceived idea about his person. First, this person came and reported himself to you, maybe to prevent any issue. So where does the preconceived notion about his person come in right here? Is it because of what happened that she told you about being molested and you told Johnny it was at school and you went to school and it was non-founded? That's why you suspect that he would have been the person but just kept it to yourself. So did you really tell Jonathan, oh, he followed her as if, oh yes, oh yeah, something is happening, go and check? But let's go on to see what Jonathan says.
Mid-brush, throw my toothbrush down, and I run. I was on the first floor, and I had to go up 2 flights of stairs to where they were changing on the 3rd floor. I get up there, and to my horror, there's my daughter. She's naked, and then Pete's in the room as well. And the only reason I didn't put hands on Pete is because he was in the room, but he wasn't like in the act. His hands weren't on my daughter. But I was just horrified that he was there while she was completely naked. And so first thing I do, I'm like, what are you doing?
Right.
I'm just shouting him down, and he immediately just starts to be like, I'm so sorry. He said, I'm so sorry. I kid you not.
Then why does Jonathan here not mention the fact that Pete was holding a child in his hands? Because even Pete himself would be wondering what is going on as well here. Like, what's up? Like, okay, it's not just me that is here. I'm holding my child. There's also the brother there. And probably Pete may not have even known that the girl was changing behind. But think about this. I am now looking at this like, it's going to look like the girl went and Pete followed her. And on following her as well, he was holding the child, paint the picture, and looking at her. We are going to listen to what Johnny says right here. So he goes to meet her. That means the girl does not know that Pete is there. If I'm not mistaken, the girl was there changing and doesn't know that Pete is there. Because why I'm saying this is that had it been Pete was there with the child and the other boy looking as well at the view before the girl comes in, why would the girl not come in there and be like she was saying when she went to DayStar and then he came into the room? Because if she goes there and then he's in the room alone, she's supposed to be scared, right? Or anywhere she sees him, of course, she's supposed to be scared. But she could go there and at that point be undressing herself while he was there, like it was painted before as if he was alone with the girl. But he wasn't alone with the girl. Now we know that the other kids who were there. Why wouldn't she just feel free and then just change and then go? What would she be thinking at that age about, oh, I want to, you know how kids are sometimes, they're not very, very perceptive like that, I would say. She's just a child. She just wants to change and go and play or something. Whatever is happening in the adult's mind, that is what happens in adult's mind, okay? But the child will be innocent and not really care about, because other kids were there. So if you hadn't seen the other part of this, which she says is a non-factor, but it's a factor for us to understand, paint the picture in your medulla, in your mind. No sentiments right here. So who went there first? She went and he followed, or she was there already and then he comes in with other kids, or he was there already and then she comes in? Which of them? Do you understand? Or is it that he told the child to go up and go and change, but just remembered that, oh, she saw him moving up there, so probably he's there with the child. Okay, go and check. But for you to say that you saw his eyes and saw him like, oh, going there, it's a different conversation entirely. And why would he not want to lay hands on him, according to Jonathan? Because when he saw him, he was not in the act, as if he was supposed to have done something according to what they suspected. But even seeing him as well there with other people as well neutralizes the whole situation, because why would he be doing that in the presence of other kids who are also boys as well or something? So now you can be painting your mind who the person might be. Let's listen to what Johnny herself had to say so we get the two sides of the conversation.
I thought to myself, what am I covering up? I've covered up nothing. Right. And so I never covered up anything. Now, there was another incident written about that was an incident that happened at our family retreat. This was in 2021. Okay.
It was this same 20. If you hadn't watched my previous video, that is your problem. The letter that was written by the letter that was written by Marcus to the family, addressing as well what might have been an altercation that came as a result of this particular incident. It detailed a lot of things as well here, looking at his reaction to what was going on inside the family. But let's go on.
We were all staying in this house together, and again, we do that once a year. And my two older grandchildren were staying in an upstairs bedroom, and it was
my two older grandchildren were staying in the upstairs bedroom. Note that.
It was a long room, and there was a bunk bed on one side, and there was another bunk bed on the other side.
Okay.
And so my grandson was talking about that he had the city view, and he was saying his sister had the beach view.
Okay.
And so one afternoon he was talking about that, and who they call Pete was in the room holding a 1-year-old baby boy. Okay. And so Pete says, oh, so you've got the city view, and everybody was talking about, well, I'd rather have the beach view, and my grandson saying, no, I like the city view. And Pete said, well, I like the city view too. And so he said, I want to see your city view. So they went up the stairs.
The grandson and Pete, and Pete had the baby.
The grandson, Pete, and the baby. Now, all those details have been left out.
So they went up the room, and Suzy didn't react, say that it was false, but she said that is a non-factor.
Yeah, exactly.
And so they went up the steps, and again, I was there. I heard this whole conversation, and around the same time, or maybe just a few minutes after, I don't know exactly when, but my granddaughter went up to the room and went over to her side while Pete and the baby and my grandson were looking out the window at the city view.
Okay.
So you see, so she doesn't know the exact time that the granddaughter went there. So what if, you know how kids behave as well? Oh, I like the city. I was not there. You were not there. So don't try to be sentimental here. And he now said, okay, let's go and see. What if they all went up at the same time? Not as if she went up first and was there and they came to come and meet her. Because had it been she was there and then she was this scared of this Pete that we are talking about, when Pete came with the brother and also came with his own child into that particular room, if she was that scared, maybe she would run away. Oh no, she ran away. Or if they went there up at the same time, why would she be so comfortable? Think about it for a moment. Changing, even when Pete is there. But the brother was there, and there was a little child as well being carried by the person. Did Jonathan say he met Pete looking at the daughter, or doing in a pet? Is preconceived opinion that informed the reaction of Suzy and Pete and Jonathan at that particular point. Because if this particular important detail is being missed out, then it paints a different picture entirely. Because she was comfortably changing her clothes there without any question. Even she might be surprised. Probably, Dad, is everything okay? Or something. But the way, Jonathan came in as well here and then shouted at him, what are you doing? For him to say he's sorry, I would not be able to explain why he said he was sorry. Let's finish with what she has to say.
And
here.
she proceeded to put her bathing suit on. Well, about the time she started to put it on, Jonathan comes running up the stairs.
Her dad.
And says, what are you doing in here while she's changing? What are you doing? And Pete was like, well, I'm sorry. I don't even know if he actually saw anything.
Because he had his back to her.
Because he was holding the baby and the 8-year-old was there, so he said, I'm so sorry, and left. But there had been some very peculiar things that have happened at this particular trip. I remember when we were at the grocery store, all the family was there, because when we always go to the grocery store and get food for breakfast and that kind of thing. And I remember Suzy was standing in line and she began to murmur under her breath and start talking about a man that was behind her. And she was getting angrier and angrier, and we were like, what's going on? And she, she said, he was looking at me, in the store. And the man is like on his phone, not knowing what in the world she's saying or doing. We were just trying to calm her down. So it was just a weird dynamic that was going on with her from the beginning.
Right. I know that you called me.
There's this song that we sing in my country. With your busy body, yeah. With your busy body, yeah, eh, eh. Oh, no, 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 oh. Hey, that's what entered my mind now. It's your busy body, you go surgery, you no go fit, you go lose control. P-Square back in the day, somebody will say now, this boy is not spiritual. Please, I don't want to start making you people be so tensed. Americans don't know this song. My people, you know the song. That's what just came into my mind. Busybody. Yeah. Okay. But do you get the point as well here of this whole conversation at this point? So how do you now make of it with this new image being painted right now? Because remember why I told you to note what she said before, that when the child saw Pete at DayStar, so the child is scared to go to DayStar according to the mom. Pete could be in the room where she was there changing, and she could comfortably be changing without any bias, innocent as a child. How can I comfortably believe what the mother is saying? But again, of course, I have to just state that as a fact that is what she said she experienced with the daughter over there at DayStar. Not just about DayStar, but Pete coming into the room. Just the room at a work environment. But you are in a home environment as well that is not more like stringent of work, but she could even be changing while Pete was there. It only had to take the parents themselves or Jonathan to come and say, why are you here when she's changing? And the man is like, oh my God, I'm sorry. There must have been a preconceived opinion that led to the outburst. But again, according to Suzy and the husband, had it been the leading act that way, probably the whole thing could have been said to be, never have happened or swept under the carpet or something. Let's listen to them as well continuously.
50 times.
Guilty behavior.
It just felt like I'd caught him red-handed and doing something he knew he shouldn't have been doing. And so that led to the confrontation with my parents.
Well, we run downstairs because remember, adult-child dynamic. Yeah. You don't make decisions. We can't call the cops. You come down to us. Mm-hmm. We run down there.
That's why some people say it's a cult.
Oh,
yeah.
It is. Yeah. We run down there. Not even 1 second. And Marcus...
My dad sits down next to Pete.
Before that, I declare him not guilty. Yeah. I stood there, my blood ran cold. I was like,
yeah.
This is not happening.
My dad said, I've been falsely accused, and I declare him to be... Yeah.
And so he sits by Pete. We're on this side of the room, and for 40 minutes we get scolded. We are agents of the devil trying to destroy DayStar. Yeah. DayStar, protect DayStar, DayStar,
Did his
DayStar.
energy change when he felt like, oh, your father's kind of backing him up? Because did he go...
So Marcus is just making it obvious that probably he believes the story or something, Because if I were to be the one, okay, I don't do interviews and all of that, I would ask you critical questions. Like, I would not even try to be like the conversation before the conversation, because probably there must have been a conversation before this conversation. You get the point right here. Oh my God, someone is already hating me in the comment. George, you are not getting it. You are speaking. You are. I'm not defending DayStar. I told you before in my second video, I'm not a big fan of that particular platform, but I don't have to stay here and then see what I'm seeing factually and not just speak to it and be like, there's something wrong here. So don't even think of that.
From like, oh, I'm sorry to like, oh yeah, it was nothing.
I mean, it felt like he was kind of more just expressionless, kind of cold.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would say he didn't say one word to defend himself. I would say he was still scared. I think he was scared for a long time, to be honest. Yeah. We run down there, not even 1 second. And Marcus...
My dad sits down next to Pete.
Before that, I declare him not guilty. Yeah. I stood there, my blood ran cold. I was like,
yeah.
This is not happening.
My dad said, I've been falsely accused, and I declare him to be... Yeah.
And so he sits by Pete. We're on this side of the room, and for 40 minutes we get scolded. We are agents of the devil trying to destroy DayStar. Yeah. DayStar, protect DayStar, DayStar,
Did his
DayStar.
energy change when he felt like, oh, your father's kind of backing him up? Because did he go from like, oh, I'm sorry to like, oh yeah, it was nothing?
I mean, it felt like he was kind of more just expressionless, kind of cold.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would say he didn't say one word to defend himself. I would
He
say
didn't.
he was still scared. I think he was scared for a long time,
Yeah.
to be honest.
But my dad immediately had his back, and what was the statement that he said?
I declare him.
Right, and then because what, like we
Oh,
also,
because he had been falsely accused, so we're doing that. We're destroying DayStar. And what was really sad was Joni was beside me, and for all that time, you know, I was her girl. I thought this was the time she was going to be like a lioness beside me. And I think that was the first opening of my eyes where she was just like cold, and she was just like mad at me. And I didn't know what to do with that. And Rebecca was a sister to me. That's Jonathan's youngest sister. Her and husband JW, they, you know, without them, I would have collapsed. I feel like I would have had maybe, I don't know what I would have done, but they held us. We sat on the beach together, we cried, prayed. And then when this investigation, they basically, I was escalating a little bit, so they found this counselor, Denise, to get us under control. But Denise is amazing because God.
Yeah, because Suzy was escalating a little bit. Like, let me just come in here, okay? Let me come in here because I need to address some things. Okay, my seats. I've sat here for a while here, so okay. Let me come in here and say something. First of all, the allegation of cover-up. Trying to be realistic right here, okay? I've dealt with issues that involve cover-ups a lot on this platform. Those who have been with me here for years, you know what's up. Okay, what you deal with back home. Even right now as well, I have a litigation on one, so I'm not new to litigations, I would say. But one thing as well that has kept me on principle is that if you come to me with a secret information like the Royce, which I respect the platform for their boldness to even cover this story, and then more like report the story of you know, Jonathan and Suzy Lamb, pretty much wonderful, I would say. At least people are having their conversations, their rebuttals here and all of that. I said previously in my first video, this is an exit strategy in the sense that Jonathan and Suzy could have been fired and nobody would have heard about it. DayStar would be moving on. But you see, in case you didn't know, Suzy was first fired and then much later, Jonathan had to be fired as well.
And then from October, you go, it's building until July of 2023 when I was fired because I stood on my convictions. Won't get into that at this point, but that's what happened. At that point, life got very difficult, complicated. Jonathan was trying to manage what to do.
yeah. I mean, at that point, there became a giant rift in the family because Suzy had just been fired and stripped away of her ability to do ministry on DayStar after many years. And I also was removed from television to where I could not be on and continue. So we're just suddenly, abruptly off television. And I continue on.
While telling the world we were on a sabbatical, which was a lie.
Yeah.
We're not okay with that. We're not okay with lies.
So, yeah, that was their way to cover, is that they would place me on a sabbatical. And so I continue on. I feel strongly from the Lord to continue in my role at DayStar. And I continue on. The board eventually gets to the point where they force me to sign an NDA to be able to stay in my position as vice president and on the board. And that's what you heard the clip of that was posted on YouTube. And I said no. Knowing what I know, I cannot sign an NDA. There had been so much spiritual abuse that we've gone through. There had been obviously questionable things going on with my daughter. But I said, no, I'm not going to sign the NDA.
And that was November 16th was that board meeting. And this is the crazy part. It was 2 days after Jonathan said no to the NDA. 2 days after, November 18th, we get the call, find out it was a cover-up. The people who supposedly did this investigation, both of them said, nope, it was shut down. We did no investigation. That sends me honestly spiraling. I couldn't believe that level of deception and trauma. I mean, I had seen lies throughout, but this level, it was too much for my heart to even bear. I hit a downward spiral. I really did.
Fired as well. So Suzy was not working in DayStar for a while before Jonathan had to follow along. Talking about the issue of NDA is purely business. I told you before in my previous video, showed you fact, of course, is both more like a ministry and a business. Like you hear them talk about Maurice as well with respect to airtime, you know, they pay as well ministers, they don't promote them for free. They don't get to host their shows on DayStar for free. I guess there's also some form of payment. There's a more like a way that goes, as they are running a business, not a charity organization.
There are other employees that did the NDA as well here?
Oh, yeah, all the department heads, the family
Okay.
that would have knowledge of business.
It wasn't just him, it was other people's over.
Including me, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes,
We
so-
did that with our business, so it's very common practice.
So the NDA as well, the question you should be asking yourself is that, what was the content of the NDA that they were supposed to sign or he was supposed to sign? Relax, because I saw someone say in my other video in the comment section that a church that has an NDA, he can't worship there or something. Either ways, where I work myself as well, there's something like that. Some businesses also have their trade secrets that you shouldn't, if you are not working in that particular corporation anymore, if you are going somewhere else as well, you don't go with those unique trade secrets, or you're not supposed to disclose those things either publicly or something. You know, some might have an agreement whereby probably you don't go into the same industry or something. Either ways, there's some form of non-disclosures as well. Even Johnny herself said in her interview with the girls or with the ladies that she also, many of the employees have the NDA as well signed. Even her herself also signed a couple of that. Do you understand? But the point I'm trying to get at right now is that you hear Suzy talk about her good relationship with Rebecca. So she's not talking about the other person whom she feels she would have been a man or something. But either ways, staying on the confines of this video having to be about the child and what is said to be the alleged sexual abuse or sexual molestation. We don't have a definition of what constitutes that. So I'm going to give some permutations. What if the same person that went to go and tell her that, hey, your daughter walked in on me this way, okay, in the bathroom, showering. I asked some critical questions on that. If she is now coming to come and tell her that sometime later that someone actually molested her, because according to her story, what Suzy has made crystal clear is that this Pete has assaulted or abused her daughter. Now, according to her as well, until there's an outcry from her, the daughter as well, nothing can be done, okay? And Pete cannot be picked up or something. Now, this issue was in the ministry or in the family long before the whole leadership thing comes out and other things that you have heard Suzy as well talk about as to what has been going on, of course, in the ministry. The question we have to ask ourselves right now is, as we are having this conversation and seeing a pattern right here, if it is being said that the ministry themselves are having a cover-up of this particular issue, were you expecting, think about this, were you expecting that, okay, they went to the beach, or let me just start from the beginning, the child told the mother, oh, mommy, either you believe what Johnny said or you believe what Suzy said, someone did this to me, and they went to the school to go and report, to go and check, and then it was, with no facts, or would I say unfounded, that they could have come on DayStar. Today's news. Our daughter told the mother that she was molested, but we went to the school and the school does not have male employees. So in order for us to have more proper investigation, we reported to the police and the police saw that nothing happened and then we closed the case. End of news. Would that be something not to cover up? Would that be defined by you as there not being a cover up? Every family gets to have issues and they try to deal with it internally as well as a family before it becomes something that breeds enmity, of course, in the family setting. Let's not look at DayStar now, because indeed, if someone working in DayStar, significant in authority, does something and is being covered up, it speaks a lot about that ministry because of what they uphold or what they are supposed to uphold as a godly Christian-centered ministry. Look at what happened in TBN and nobody knew until Crutch had started speaking about it publicly or something, until investigations were done. So there are certain characters that are also expected of people that are of leadership. That is why when Marcos himself was involved in his own scandal as well, no matter what was done as well to whether cover it up or not, which I don't know too well, the story itself did still come out, and then they were able to move through that particular setting. Doug was also involved, according to what they say, that he was also part of the counseling process of them going through that stage of their life. But that came out in the open, and the ministry still survived through that, and then people still trusted and then still followed the ministry. Now, this one as well here is them trying to deal with the issue internally. But I will want to ask you, at what point do you think that they should have been the one to come and tell the world the story? Because if DayStar had to come outside and tell the world the story themselves of what has happened, that means they cannot handle what they are facing. So they have to come and publicize it to the world to get maybe public opinion or trying to settle a case. If it was something that concerns someone external to the ministry, trying to have an issue with them, it would be a public conversation, because like when Marcus himself was involved in a scandal before his passing as well, it was, more like there were threats as well to it and all of that, somewhat more like blackmail. The story was a bit messy then, but they were able to walk through that because it's also an insider situation. These things from the scandals I've discussed about in the past, those who get to come out with these stories are those who have been close to the subject, insiders. So I want to ask you, at what point right here do you think they could have come outside and spoken about what is happening with their daughter and this person called Pete? Or wouldn't you have thought that they would try to handle the issue as a family inside and then for it not to come public? Just be realistic, okay? Just be realistic. So this is the case whereby they took proper measures as well inside to get someone to investigate. Suzy gets to talk about the person as well, dog-wise. We looked at her extensively in my previous video, her letter, everything, what she thinks about dog-wise and all of that in our previous video. But Denise Box herself, the person that was being brought in, had to bring someone else in who was a professional that works with the police. And in her carrying her investigation as well here, she did not clear the person of Pete. Why? Because Pete was not the one speaking for himself. It was the wife that was speaking up for him and more like taking control of the narrative as well, because Pete wasn't answering questions according to what they said in their story. Okay? So where we see an issue right here is that Pete was not cleared, but Marcus and Johnny are alleged to have said, the Lord told me that he is innocent. And the last time I checked, my dear friends, you always believe what your pastor said, that the Lord appeared to them, they had a dream, the Lord told me this. So according to principle, they just believed what the authorities told them, that the Lord told them that, Pete himself is innocent, even though they did not believe that Pete was innocent. But I'm now trying to correlate the future encounters as well. They now still have the same Pete who is working in DayStar and also a family member, led to the daughter not going to DayStar anymore. So how do you get to correlate that, again I would say, with the incident that is much more, at least has witnesses, just like I just discussed about it right now? So indeed as well, if it was not a cover-up, if it was to be exposed and not covered up, please tell us in the comment. Let me understand the concept of cover-up here, that these are people that are in the same family, no one external to them, but people in the same family with the same bloodline as well, connected, are the ones having issue, and then they have to bring their family problem outside to discuss, because whoever is coming outside as well to discuss their family issue they want to deal with will be the one that is very, very much disgruntled about the issue, and then wants a public jury as well to be the one to, wants a public jury to be the one to raise alarm or show that they are having a problem or show that they are in danger or something. Because Suzy herself said it, that them speaking out as well, they started being followed and all of that. So you can now see here that Suzy coming out and Jonathan coming out to talk about this is because the issue could not be handled in the family amongst them together. So at this point as well here, was the family really covering it up, if you think critically about it? Because according to them here, where the cover-up is going to be existent is where there is a lie that Pete was being cleared by the investigator, but he was not cleared truly. Then that is going to be a cover-up. Do you understand? That means the same investigator would have to be involved in going through that. But now they're saying the memory of a child is fading as well with respect to that. Would this whole issue be to remind the child or try to take a child through a traumatic experience at this particular point? What is our interest, of course, in this right now? And is the child having traumatic experiences or seizures anytime she sees Pete or something? Isn't it just not interesting that at least, of course, with this, the child is out of that environment that the mom feels is literally, affecting her life and her growth and her person with respect to DayStar. Because not like I mentioned, she was already fired because of her convictions. But Jonathan as well was still working in the ministry up until when he didn't sign the NDA and then had to leave, because the NDA condition was that if you don't sign, that means you are the one leaving, probably firing yourself, not as if someone is telling you to leave. So he refused to sign. That means as well, that means that he is actually, taking a step away. Okay, so when it comes to the subject of cover up here, what I see here that would be cover up allegedly would be if there is actually a lie that Pete himself was not cleared, and that was what Dennis Box was saying, that Pete wasn't cleared as well to cover up the case, so the family just didn't want to continue with the case. Let's end this and then get to move on. So them coming out as well to speak out about this. What is the main issue? Is the main issue the S abuse? Is the main issue the leadership? So what is the main issue? Is it the S abuse, or is it the leadership, of course, of the ministry? Johnny is saying it to be a leadership situation, which is now raising concerns about the S abuse as well, which is supposed to probably, would I say, give the network a bad image. And then they are saying that it's not really about the leadership, because what is going to belong to Jonathan would belong to him. With the way things are going, is that going to happen? If it passes on from him, we know one thing for sure. If Doug holds any leadership position in that particular ministry, that means they lied about Doug signing a prenup, and that does not account, or would I say matter anymore. So the person that is going to hold leadership right now would be the person that she was insinuating, Suzy, that is the sister of Jonathan. It will now look as if it's more like a TBN situation happening right here between siblings, one feeling that okay, but now this is an allegation by Suzy, which I cannot prove for a fact, but that is our own suspicion. But one thing for sure as well we can see here is that Johnny herself feels that Jonathan's character and persona is twisted because of Suzy. So Suzy is the main person that she sees to be a problem with respect to her son, Jonathan. But one thing we can know here for sure is that it's not as if, one thing I have stated as well here for a fact is that looking at the marriage between Doug Wise and the person of Johnny Lamb, I don't see their grounds to be biblical in my own opinion. If they're talking about abandonment, it doesn't get to tally. But also something I find quite interesting is that even though Doug Wise have left Lisa is still working in his counseling center, according to what the news reports are saying. Very much active, of course, in the family business, and Doug Wise is just over there at DayStar with Johnny as well, carrying on his marital duties and being over there.
It's an incredible blessing to me. He has his own business that still operates an amazing counseling center in Colorado Springs. Mm-hmm. And so...
if he's truly divorced as well with the person of Lisa, what is the ground of their divorce as well? That Lisa is still working and managing the same business that you see Doug Wise talk about pretty much very well. Would Doug Wise be in DayStar because, of course, he wants to be in television ministry, even though he's experienced in that? And what would literally put him there solidified very well would be that he has to marry the person of Johnny Lamb. Is it possible that he can still have anything as well to do with Lisa? Because Lisa is working in his own establishment, allegedly, as is being reported. So yes, Lisa is quite interesting that she's not speaking, and Doug is not speaking very much about the whole situation. So the eye and the beam of everybody is on Johnny. But Johnny has spoken her own truth according to what she believes is happening in this whole situation. Johnny herself would long to actually reunite with her son, but I can't be very sure about Suzy being involved in that, because if you listen to what she said about the witch of the father, Marcus Lamb, he always wished that Jonathan runs the ministry as well with the sisters.
They did not want someone else coming in and taking their place. But the truth is, Doug didn't take anybody's place.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Marcus had left strict instructions that if anything ever happened to him, that I would be president of DayStar. And a lot of people are saying, well, Marcus intended for Jonathan to be the president. Marcus never intended for Jonathan to be the president while I was alive or while he was alive. Mm-hmm. He had hoped, and he used this analogy all the time. He said, I when your mom and I are gone, it would be my hope that Jonathan could lead with the girls beside him, and he would use the analogy of Moses
Holding up
with
the arms.
Aaron and her holding up the arms, and he wanted the three of them to work together. He said it over and over.
I hear that, yeah.
But what happened was, when Doug came into the picture, there was something underneath there that I'd never seen before that came to the surface. And I was shocked because I had always had a great relationship with everybody.
I didn't see them talk about their spouses and those who are involved. So what have we seen right here? The women that are in this ministry, typically as well, they have a particular unique character with them. And I think this is just, and I think there is more to this than we can see ourselves. So yes, of course, there might be a case with the person of Pete, but in this particular context, the way I see it, it doesn't really make a logical sense. It would have been important that they didn't miss out some details because of their assumption, because that actually made people run along with a couple of things. And Johnny Lamb as well, coming out to speak her own version as well, connects the dots. But again, it's just an innocent child right now being discussed about, and they will grow up as well to see all of these things and wonder to themselves, what really happened when I was a kid? And maybe one day as well, the child might actually tell her own truth. That is, if she's not being fed with what to say, or she actually gets to speak from her mind what did really happen. But one thing we can say for sure right here is that God knows the truth. I don't know the truth. You don't know the truth per se. We can only go by what we see, what we hear, and have our own perceptions. I would know how to ask critical questions as well to really make us think before we actually run into conclusions. But we have to hear from every side that is speaking for us to actually arrive at a conclusion. Like I said as well here, keep your eye on DayStar. See how things of course get to unfold. And we are hoping for the best as well, okay? Till I see you next time, the name is George.